Willie Winkie by Rudyard Kipling. An officer and a gentleman. His full name was Percival William Williams, but he picked up the other name in a nursery book, and that was the end of the christened titles. His mother's ayah called him Willie Baba, but as he never paid the faintest attention to anything that the ayah said, her wisdom did not help matters. His father was the colonel of the 195th, and as soon as Willie Winkie was old enough to understand what military discipline meant, Colonel Williams put him under it. There was no other way of managing the child. When he was good for a week, he drew good conduct pay, and when he was bad, he was deprived of his good conduct stripe. Generally, he was bad, for India offers so many chances to little 6-year-olds of going wrong. Children resent familiarity from strangers, and Willie Winkie was a very particular child. Once he accepted an acquaintance, he was graciously pleased to thaw. He accepted Brandes, a subaltern of the 195th, on sight. Brandes was having tea at the colonel's, and Willie Winkie entered strong in the possession of a good conduct badge. One, for not chasing the hens round the compound. He regarded Brandes with gravity for at least 10 minutes, and then delivered himself of his opinion. "I like you," said he, slowly getting off his chair, and coming over to Brandes. "I like you. I shall call you Copy because of your hair. Do you mind being called Copy? It is because of V hair, you know." Here was one of the most embarrassing of Willie Winkie's peculiarities. He would look at a stranger for some time, and then, without warning or explanation, would give him a name, and the name stuck. No regimental penalties could break Willie Winkie of this habit. He lost his good conduct badge for christening the commissioner's wife Pabs, but nothing that the colonel could do made the station forgo the nickname, and Mrs. Carlin remained Mrs. Pabs till the end of her stay. So Brandes was christened Copy, and rose therefore in the estimation of the regiment. If Willie Winkie took an interest in anyone, the fortunate man was envied alike by the mess and the rank and file, and in their envy lay no suspicion of self-interest. The colonel's son was idolized on his own merits entirely, yet Willie Winkie was not lovely. His face was permanently freckled, as his legs were permanently scratched, and in spite of his mother's almost tearful remonstrances, he had insisted upon having his long yellow locks cut short in the military fashion. "I want my hair like Sergeant Tummel's," said Willie Winkie, and his father, abetting the sacrifice, was accomplished. 3 weeks after the bestowal of his youthful affections on Lieutenant Brandes, henceforward to be called Copy for the sake of brevity, Willie Winkie was destined to behold strange things, and far beyond his comprehension. Copy returned his liking with interest. Copy had let him wear for 5 rapturous minutes his own big sawdust, as tall as Willie Winkie. Copy had promised him a terrier puppy, and Copy had permitted him to witness the miraculous operation of shaving. Nay, more, Copy had said that even he, Willie Winkie, would rise in time to the ownership of a box of shiny knives, a silver soap box, and a silver-handled sputter brush, as Willie Winkie called it. Decidedly, there was no one, except his father, who could give or take away good conduct badges at pleasure half so wise, strong, and valiant as Copy, with the Afghan and Egyptian medals on his breast. Why then should Copy be guilty of the unmanly weakness of vehemently kissing a big girl, Miss Allardyce, to wit, in the course of a morning ride? Willie Winkie had seen Copy so doing, and like the gentleman he was, had promptly wheeled round and cantered back to his groom, lest the groom should also see. Under ordinary circumstances, he would have spoken to his father, but he felt instinctively that this was a matter on which Copy ought first to be consulted. Copy shouted Willie Winkie, reining up outside that subaltern's bungalow early one morning. "I want to see you, Copy." "Come in." Young unreturned Copy, who was at early breakfast in the midst of his dogs. "What mischief have you been getting into now?" Willie Winkie had done nothing notoriously bad for 3 days, and so stood on a pinnacle of virtue. "I've been doing nothing bad," said he, curling himself into a long chair with a studious affectation of the colonel's languor. After a hot parade, he buried his freckled nose in a teacup, and with eyes staring roundly over the rim asked, "I say, Copy, is it peewoper to kiss big girls?" "By Jove, you're beginning early. Who do you want to kiss?" "No one. My mother's always kissing me if I don't stop her. if it isn't Peewoper, how was you kissing Major Allardyce's big girl last morning by V. Canal? Copy's brow wrinkled. He and Miss Allardyce had with great craft managed to keep their engagement secret for a fortnight. There were urgent and imperative reasons why Major Allardyce should not know how matters stood for at least another month, and this small marplot had discovered a great deal too much. "I saw you," said Willie Winkie calmly, "but V. Groom didn't see." I said, "Hut, Joe. Oh, you had that much sense, you young rip," groaned poor Copy, half amused and half angry. "And how many people may you have told about it?" "Only me myself you didn't tell. When I tweed to Wide v. Buffalo, then my pony was lame, and I thought you wouldn't like." "Winkie," said Copy, enthusiastically shaking the small hand, "you're the best of good fellows. Look here, you can't understand all these things one of these days. Shang it. How can I make you see it? Going to marry Miss Allardyce, and then shall be Mrs. Copy, as you say, if your young mind is so scandalized at the idea of kissing big girls, go and tell your father." "What will happen?" said Willie Winkie, who firmly believed that his father was omnipotent. "I shall get into trouble," said Copy, playing his trump card with an appealing look at the holder of the ace. "Then I want," said Willie Winkie briefly, "but my favor says it's unmanly to be always kissing, and I didn't think you'd do that, Copy." "I'm not always kissing, old chap. It's only now and then, and when you're a bigger you'll do it too. Your father meant it's not good for little boys." "Ah," said Willie Winkie, now fully enlightened. "It's like V. Sputterbrush." "Exactly," said Copy gravely. "But I don't think I'll ever want to kiss big girls, nor no one except my mother, and I must that you know." There was a long pause, broken by Willie Winkie. "Are you fond of this big girl, Copy?" "Awfully," said Copy. "Fonder than you are of Belle or V, but sure me." "It's in a different way," said Copy. "You see, one of these days, Miss Allardyce will belong to me, but you'll grow up and command the regiment and all sorts of things. It's quite different, you see." "Very well," said Willie Winkie, rising. "If you're fond of V big girl, I won't tell anyone. I must go now." Copy rose and escorted his small guest to the door, adding, "You're the best of little fellows, Winkie. I tell you what, in 30 days from now you can tell, if you like, tell anyone you like." Thus the secret of the Brandeis Allardyce engagement was dependent on a little child's word. Copy, who knew Willie Winkie's idea of truth, was at ease, for he felt that he would not break promises. Willie Winkie betrayed a special and unusual interest in Miss Allardyce, and slowly revolving round that embarrassed young lady was used to regard her gravely with unwinking eye. He was trying to discover why Copy should have kissed her. She was not half so nice as his own mother. On the other hand, she was Copy's property, and would in time belong to him. Therefore, it behooved him to treat her with as much respect as Copy's big sword or shiny pistol. The idea that he shared a great secret in common with Copy kept Willie Winkie unusually virtuous for 3 weeks. Then the old Adam broke out, and he made what he called a campfire at the bottom of the garden. How could he have foreseen that the flying sparks would have lighted the colonel's little hayrick and consumed a week's store for the horses? Sudden and swift was the punishment, deprivation of the good conduct badge, and most sorrowful of all, 2 days' confinement to Barrack's house, and veranda, coupled with the withdrawal of the light of his father's countenance. He took the sentence like the man he strove to be, drew himself up with a quivering underlip, saluted, and once clear of the room, ran to weep bitterly in his nurserickled, by him, my quarters. Copy came in the afternoon, and attempted to console the culprit. "I am under arrest," said Willie Winkie mournfully, "and I didn't ought to speak to you." Very early the next morning, he climbed on to the roof of the house that was not forbidden, and beheld Miss Allardyce going for a ride. "Where are you going?" cried Willie Winkie. "Across the river," she answered, and trotted forward. Now the cantonment in which the 195th lay was bounded on the north by a riverdry. In the winter, from his earliest years, Willie Winkie had been forbidden to go across the river, and had noted that even Copy's almost almighty Copy had never set foot beyond it. Wee Willie Winkie had once been read to out of a big blue book, The History of the Princess and the Goblin's Most Wonderful Tale of a Land, where the goblins were always warring with the children of men, until they were defeated by one Curdie. Ever since that date, it seemed to him that the bare black and purple hills across the river were inhabited by goblins, and in truth, everyone had said that there lived the bad men. Even in his own house, the lower halves of the windows were covered with green paper on account of the bad men who might, if allowed clear view, fire into peaceful drawing rooms and comfortable bedrooms certainly beyond the river, which was the end of all the earth, lived the bad men. And here was Major Allardyce's big girl Copy's property preparing to venture into their borders. What would Copy say if anything happened to her, if the goblins ran off with her, as they did with Curdie's princess? She must at all hazards be turned back. The house was still. Wee Willie Winkie reflected for a moment on the very terrible wrath of his father, and then broke his arrest. It was a crime unspeakable. The low sun threw his shadow, very large and very black, on the trim garden paths as he went down to the stables and ordered his pony. It seemed to him in the hush of the dawn that all the big world had been bidden to stand still and look at Wee Willie Winkie guilty of mutiny. The drowsy groom handed him his mount, and since the one great sin made all others insignificant, Wee Willie Winkie said that he was going to ride over to Copy Sahib, and went out at a foot-pace, stepping on the soft mould of the flower borders. The devastating track of the pony's feet was the last misdeed that cut him off from all sympathy of humanity. He turned into the road, leaned forward, and rode as fast as the pony could put foot to the ground in the direction of the river. But the liveliest of 12 ponies can do little against the long canter of a whaler. Miss Allardyce was far ahead, had passed through the crops beyond the police post when all the guards were asleep, and her mount was scattering the pebbles of the river bed as Wee Willie Winkie left the cantonment, and British India behind him bowed forward and still. Flogging, Wee Willie Winkie shot into Afghan territory and could just see Miss Allardyce, a black speck, flickering across the stony plain. The reason of her wandering was simple enough. Copy, in a tone of too hastily assumed authority, had told her overnight that she must not ride out by the river, and she had gone to prove her own spirit and teach Copy a lesson. Almost at the foot of the inhospitable hills, Wee Willie Winkie saw the whaler blunder and come down heavily. Miss Allardyce struggled clear, but her ankle had been severely twisted, and she could not stand. Having thus demonstrated her spirit, she wept copiously and was surprised by the apparition of a white-witted child in khaki on a nearly spent pony. "Are you badly hurted?" shouted Wee Willie Winkie as soon as he was within range. "You didn't ought to be here." "I don't know," said Miss Allardyce, ruefully ignoring the reproof. "Good gracious, child, what are you doing here?" "You said you was going across the river," panted Wee Willie Winkie, throwing himself off his pony, "and nobody, not even Copy, must go across the river. And I came after you ever so hard, but you wouldn't stop. And now you've hurted yourself, and Copy will be angry with me, and I've bewoken my OST. I've bewoken my OST." The future colonel of the 195th sat down and sobbed in spite of the pain in her ankle. The girl was moved. "Have you ridden all the way from cantonments, little man? What for?" "You belong to Copy. Copy told me so," wailed Wee Willie Winkie disconsolately. "I saw him kissing you, and he said he was fonder of you Van Bell, or V Butcher, or me. And so I came. You must get up and come back. You didn't ought to be here. This is a bad place, and I've bewoken my OST." "I can't move, Winkie," said Miss Allardyce with a groan. "I've hurt my foot. What shall I do?" She showed a readiness to weep afresh, which steadied Wee Willie Winkie, who had been brought up to believe that tears were the depth of unmanliness. Still, when one is as great a sinner as Wee Willie Winkie, even a man may be permitted to break down. "Winkie," said Miss Allardyce, "when you've rested a little, ride back and tell them to send out something to carry me back in. It hurts fearfully." The child sat still for a little time, and Miss Allardyce closed her eyes. The pain was nearly making her faint. She was roused by Wee Willie Winkie tying up the reins on his pony's neck and setting it free with a vicious cut of his whip that made it whicker. The little animal headed toward the cantonments. "Oh, Winkie, What are you doing? Hush, said wee Willie Winkie, there's a man coming on of v bad men. I must stay with you, my favor says. A man must always look after a girl. Jack will go home, and then they'll come and look for us. That's why I let him go. Not one man, but 2 or 3 had appeared from behind the rocks of the hills, and the heart of wee Willie Winkie sank within him, for just in this manner were the goblins wont to steal out and vex Curdie's soul. Thus had they played in Curdie's garden, he had seen the picture, and thus had they frightened the princess nurse. He heard them talking to each other, and recognized with joy the bastard Pushto that he had picked up from one of his father's grooms. Lately dismissed people who spoke that tongue could not be the bad men, they were only natives after all. They came up to the boulders on which Miss Allardyce's horse had blundered. Then rose from the rock wee Willie Winkie, child of the dominant race, aged 6 3/4, and said briefly and emphatically, Jow the pony had crossed the riverbed. The men laughed, and laughter from natives was the one thing wee Willie Winkie could not tolerate. He asked them what they wanted, and why they did not depart. Other men, with most evil faces and crooked-stocked guns, crept out of the shadows of the hills, till soon wee Willie Winkie was face to face with an audience some 20 strong. Miss Allardyce screamed. "Who are you?" said one of the men. "I am the Colonel Sahib's son, and my order is that you go at once. You black men are frightening the Miss Sahib. One of you must run into cantonments and take the news that Miss Sahib has hurt herself and that the Colonel's son is here with her." "Put our feet into the trap," was the laughing reply. "Hear this boy's speech. Say that I sent you, I, the Colonel's son. They will give you money." "What is the use of this talk? Take up the child and the girl, and we can at least ask for the ransom. Ours are the villages on the heights," said a voice in the background. These were the bad men, worse than goblin sand. It needed all wee Willie Winkie's training to prevent him from bursting into tears, but he felt that to cry before a native, excepting only his mother's ayah, would be an infamy greater than any mutiny. Moreover, he, as future colonel of the 195th, had that grim regiment at his back. "Are you going to carry us away?" said wee Willie Winkie, very blanched and uncomfortable. "Yes, my little Sahib," Bahadur said, the tallest of the men, "and eat you afterward." "That is child's talk," said wee Willie Winkie. "Men do not eat men." A yell of laughter interrupted him, but he went on firmly, "And if you do carry us away, I tell you that all my regiment will come up in a day and kill you all without leaving one who will take my message to the Colonel Sahib." Speech in any vernacular, and wee Willie Winkie had a colloquial acquaintance with 3 was easy to the boy who could not yet manage his RS and THS aright. Another man joined the conference, crying, "O foolish men, what this babe says is true. He is the heart's heart of those white troops for the sake of peace. Let them go both, for if he be taken the regiment will break loose and gut the valley. Our villages are in the valley, and we shall not escape that regiment. Our devils they broke Kodayar's breastbone with kicks when he tried to take the rifles, and if we touch this child, they will fire and rape and plunder for a month, till nothing remains. Better to send a man back to take the message and get a reward. I say that this child is their God, and that they will spare none of us nor our women if we harm him." It was Din Mahmud, the dismissed groom of the colonel, who made the diversion, and an angry and heated discussion followed. Wee Willie Winkie, standing over Miss Allardyce, waited the upshot. Surely his own regiment would not desert him if they knew of his extremity. The riderless pony brought the news to the 195th, though there had been consternation in the colonel's household for an hour before the little beast came in through the parade ground in front of the main barracks, where the men were settling down to play spolfiv till the afternoon. Devlin, the colour sergeant of E Company, glanced at the empty saddle and tumbled through the barrack rooms, kicking up each room. "Corporal," as he passed up, "ye beggars, there's something happened to the Colonel's son," he shouted. "He couldn't fall off Selp. Me, he couldn't fall off," blubbered a drummer boy. "Go and hunt across the river. He's over there. If he's anywhere, and maybe those Pathans have got Roman 999. For the love o' God, don't look for I am in the nullahs. Let's go over the river." "There's sense," In Mart yet said Devlin E Company, double out to the river sharp. So E Company in its shirt sleeves mainly doubled for the dear life, and in the rear twirled the perspiring sergeant adjuring it to double yet faster. The cantonment was alive, with the men of the 195th hunting for wee Willie Winkie, and the colonel finally overtook E Company far too exhausted to swear, struggling in the pebbles of the riverbed. Up the hill under which wee Willie Winkie's bad men were discussing the wisdom of carrying off the child, and the girl, a lookout, fired 2 shots. "What have I said?" shouted Din Mahommed. "There is the warning. The Pulton are out already, and are coming across the plain. Get away. Let us not be seen with the boy." The men waited for an instant, and then as another shot was fired withdrew into the hills silently as they had appeared. "The regiment is coming," said wee Willie Winkie confidently to Miss Allardyce, "and it's all white. Don't cwi." He needed the advice himself, for 10 minutes later, when his father came up, he was weeping bitterly with his head in Miss Allardyce's lap. And the men of the 195th carried him home with shouts and rejoicings, and Copy, who had ridden a horse into a lather, met him, and to his intense disgust kissed him openly in the presence of the men. But there was balm for his dignity. His father assured him that not only would the breaking of arrest be condoned, but that the good conduct badge would be restored as soon as his mother could sew it on his blouse sleeve. Miss Allardyce had told the colonel a story that made him proud of his son. "She belonged to you, Copy," said wee Willie Winkie, indicating Miss Allardyce with a grimy forefinger. "I knew she didn't ought to go across v Wiver, and I knew v regiment would come to me if I sent Jack home." "You're a hero, Winkie," said Copy, "a pucker hero." "I don't know what that means," said wee Willie Winkie, "but you mustn't call me Winkie any no more. I am Percival Williams." And in this manner did wee Willie Winkie enter into his manhood.